Thank you so much. That's great. Hi. Good morning. So, thank you all for coming here. I know you're here for your own selfish desires, but so am I. I'm passionately driven to help people. It's all that I do. You know, a lot of people have jobs, and you go to your job and you go home and you have your hobbies, and you know, you have your church, or you have the things that you're interested in. You watch your movies, you read your books. This is all that I do. I'm obsessed with helping people. And I've always been obsessed with helping people, but I've never really been very good at it. I've been very good at giving advice in rude ways, in kind of cut to the core ways. I've lost empathy along the way. I've lost myself along the way. And I've never really bled for a good cause. Before I got into helping people, I just thought, you know, work hard, do your best, make lots of money, have the white picket fence, the American dream, and then you're going to be happy, right? Is that, anybody believe in that? Is that work for anybody? It's crazy, isn't it? It's absolutely crazy, and we tell ourselves these stories, and we see it in the movies and stuff like that, and man, I had it. I had it all. Everything was lined up very nicely for me. And I did a really good job burying my past, which, if it feels right, I'll talk about that here today too. But it wasn't actually until I developed tremendous anxiety where I would wake up with gut-wrenching tension every single morning. And it would be worse if I drank myself to sleep, which was the usual because that was the only way that I could get to sleep at a reasonable hour. I was having regular panic attacks, and even my son was my trigger. So my firstborn, really the only thing I ever wanted to do with my life was to be a dad, and here I have this beautiful boy, and every time I'd look at him, I started developing these panic attacks, and I'd get shaky, and I'd have to leave the room. And it was a blessing having panic attacks, having PTSD and insomnia and all the other things that I was going through at the time. It was a blessing because had I not had that trauma in my life, I wouldn't have stopped and changed direction. I had this inertia, this momentum pulling me towards creating more crap in my life, creating more problems. So, if you're in a place or you know somebody that's in a place that's hard right now, it's meant to be. I know that might sound insensitive, but it's perfect that you're there because you can believe in God or the universe or energy. Believe in yourself. You are meant for something more. And we as humans, we get really comfy in places, and we get very used to how life is going. You'd be surprised at how much you can handle too. You know, it wasn't like it was an overnight thing for me that I had these panic attacks. I'm like, oh, I have to change. No, I was lying to myself for a very long time. I thought that I could handle it. I thought that I would grow, and that it was just part of the process. And I just kept being in denial until I just landed on my face and was ready to kill myself and then turn things around. So what I'd like to do is really make you feel better today. You know, I think that we come into things like this, we read books, we do a ton of research, and what we're feeding when we're doing that kind of stuff is our minds. We're feeding our programming. Yes, I have very funny shoes, by the way, if anybody wants to look at those things. That's a different topic, though. A lot of different belief systems. So, what was I saying? We as humans, we are multi-dimensional beings experiencing one emotional state at a time. We are not one person. We are all of it. The line between good and evil, or cuts between the heart of every man, woman, and child. You know that quote? Basically, what I'm trying to say is that when you think you're aware in a certain situation, you're only 5% aware. Your conscious awareness is only 5% responsible for the decisions that you make. And the only way to know that awareness is being guided in the right direction is to have a really good understanding of all the subconscious stuff that we've buried over the years, that we've hidden or manipulated based on society and rules and school and media and what our parents tell us and things like that. So when Kelly asked me to speak here, I was thrilled, and I sat down and I started writing. And I have so much information, so many studies that I want to tell you guys about that are really mind-blowing that you could tell all your friends about, and it'd be beautiful because it would be this way to relate to other people. I have so many books that I've read and so many lessons that I've learned. I'm chock full of wisdom as I toot my own horn. But as David mentioned, we need to feel in order to actually grow. So although I probably will fill your minds with a lot of information and wisdom before my time is up, what I really, really want to do is make you guys feel like this was the right thing for you to do today, that this was that moment that things started to change and got different for you. Because that's all that really matters. You know, if I ask you what's more important, to know a lot, here, we'll ask you this. Okay, but it's loaded, so you already know what's coming. Would you rather know that you're confident, or would you rather feel confident? You know, who would rather know that they're confident, right? So you get what I'm saying. But if you know that you're confident, you're using and thank you for raising your hand. If you know that you're confident, you're using your mind. You're using a program that's going to constantly tell you, well, you're confident because you've accomplished all these things, and you have these friends that would also say you're a confident person, and the way that you carry yourself, and yada yada. But then when you get up on stage for the first time speaking in front of people, you'd rather feel confident because, I know a lot, but I didn't know what I was going to say before I came up here, because every single day that I sat down, I had something else that I wanted to talk to you guys about. I could tell my story. I could teach this one lesson. I've done 1,000 Facebook Lives. I have 500 topics on my Evernote on my phone that I could talk about. But what it just kept coming back down to is something real. I want you to feel real. So if you feel confident, if you feel beautiful, if you feel empowered, nothing else matters. If you feel happy, nothing matters. If you feel content, nothing matters. But if you know you're content, or you know you should be content, it's going to be riddled with guilt. Because why am I not feeling content why am I not feeling gratitude if I have all these great things in my life? Feeling is important. So, would you guys do me the honor of standing up right now with me? If you can. Thank you so much. What a beautiful audience. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, we're just going to lift our hands up in the air, breathe in, and lift them back down. Lift them down, put them down. Listen to that. Breathe in. Let's get like an audible tone. Come on, I know we've had rough weeks, we've had rough lives. Let it out. There you go. Now this time do something with your lips, like on the way down. Okay, ready? Breathe in. That's good. See, it's good to laugh. There's something really powerful here today. Can you guys keep breathing with me, but don't make too much noise so I can talk? Here, lift your hands up. I'm going to keep talking just for a second, okay? There's something really powerful about today. Everybody in this room right now has the same intention. Come on, keep breathing. I want you to just slow it down a little bit, though. Thank you so much for sitting up front. Okay, just do a little 360. Just move yourself around just a little bit if you can. It's good to move your energy. Stagnancy is bad. It's really bad for your mind. It's bad for your body. It's bad for your healing. You guys can sit down. Thank you so much for moving around with me. So, great. If everyone has the same intention, it's very, very powerful. There's a layer of trust that we can have in this room, that we all want to feel better. So if that is anything that you can put in your hearts right now, knowing that the people in this room just want you to feel better and that they want to feel better, it's a great thing. I mean, how often we're sitting on the bus like other people are like, I want you to feel good, you know? Someone comes up to you, how are you today? You're like, good, but really you're like, shit, this has been a really terrible day, rough week. And that's a loaded question too, because when people come up to you and say, how are you? You're not in your head still thinking about all the negative stuff. In that very moment, in that present moment, you actually are good. So what do they mean? Do they mean how have you been? How's life been? How's your future looking in regards to everything that's going on right now? But right now in this room, you guys want to feel better. So that was just a little something to move your energy around. Before I tell you a little bit about my story and the things that I do and some of the lessons that I can impart to you, I want to teach you a breathing exercise. How many people have done breathing exercises to try to feel better? Beautiful, great. And for everyone that raised their hand that has tried breathing exercises, how many of you would say that those breathing exercises have worked? Okay. Now, when I say worked, does that mean to you, does that mean they've helped you to calm down a little bit? So I would define working as something a little bit different. And I asked this on Facebook a couple months back. Don't look it up because you'll embarrass the woman. But I said, when I say worked, I mean it got me the change that I wanted. So if I gave you a toothbrush and said, this toothbrush works for 70% of your teeth, would you buy that toothbrush off of me? And she said, yes. And I'm like, boy, the resiliency in her mind right now. I'm like, but I know that really deep down she doesn't mean, you guys wouldn't want a toothbrush that only brushed 70% of your teeth, right? When I say worked, I mean it cured your constant anxiety. It broke you of your fear. It healed your trauma in you. It stopped you, prevented you from being able to have panic attacks again. So how many of you have had a breathing exercise or a practice or a modality, whatever, that has worked like that? Beautiful. Good. So I'm going to tell you about my breathing exercise, which is probably very similar to the ones that you have done, but I'm going to tell you why it works really, really well. So before I get into that, responsibility is only your ability to respond. It's nothing more than that. Responsibility is not something that you should feel guilty about or feel pressured on. It's an empowerment word. So when you're responsible for you, this is easier said than done, and we'll get there, but when you're responsible for you, it doesn't matter what people do to you, it doesn't matter what life throws at you, you only care about making yourself feel good in that moment. So you have to learn how to be able to make yourself happy no matter what, and we'll get to that too. This breathing exercise works because you can work, no matter what. You can do this. I've helped people cure their fibromyalgia in 2 weeks, 50 years of fibromyalgia. I've helped people cure their seizures, lifelong seizures, in 2 or 3 weeks. Day-long panic attacks, anxiety, depression, PTSD, physical ailments, I've helped them do that. And it all started with this breath work. And there's a lot that our mind will try to confuse apart from the breath work, but the breath work is where it starts. So the first thing you have to know about a breathing exercise is your posture is incredibly important. Has anybody heard that posture is important for breathing? Oh, well, you, of course. Good, we got a couple. There we go. Well, the reason for that is that before we started talking, our bodies had to have some sort of chemical language to make sure that we were doing the right thing. So in wrestling, we had to get down in stances like this. This is what I did right before I lost every match that I ever wrestled, pretty much. And in this stance, you are protecting your soft spots. You're making sure that, you don't get lashed by a tiger or something like that. When you do this, your body instantly is going into a fight or flight mode. It's on the defense, and it's in degradation. So what is the jobs, like stagnancy jobs, what is it? Sedentary lifestyles, right? People that sit in front of computers all day are more depressed than, your construction workers or plumbers or people that are up and about and moving. And moving is very important. So there are signals in your body that are telling your mind and your subconscious that it's danger or that it's a welcoming experience. So the very first thing is sitting up very straight and lifting your chin up. And if everybody would just kind of lift their chins up right now, you might even feel kind of funny doing it. Some of that is because we live in a society that social awkwardness is more important than our health, worrying about being socially awkward. Because if I walk around like this all the time, who the heck does this guy think he is? with his chin up like that. How dare he be that happy? It's when, plus it's a little weird. But you lift your chin up, you might even feel a little bit of a release in the back of your head. And that's saying, it's safe, it's okay. No tigers are gonna bite me. We checked actually the parameter before we started this thing, no tigers. The next thing is having your shoulders back. So when you put your shoulders back, you're opening up your belly. And again, you're saying, this is safe. I don't have to put my ribs down, I'm not putting my chin down. Everything's safe. The next thing are your hands. You want to open your palms up. So you're sitting, chin up, shoulders back, opening your palms up. Now this is the best case scenario. If you can do this, like every time you go to the bathroom, or in the morning and at night, or if you're sitting at a desk job. I see I got a participant back there. If you're sitting at a desk job, you can do this every once in a while. And you just want to relax into this posture. I know this might be uncomfortable for some of you because it's very rare that we even sit up straight. And especially if you have a cell phone, it's already putting us down in this weird little posture. And I worked with surgeons for 7 years, and they all developed this hunchback, and they're always leaning over, and they wind up being miserable by the end of their careers too, and go figure. So posture is extremely important. The next thing is the breath. Does anybody know how to breathe into their belly? Diaphragmic breathing, we got a couple. If you don't know, you just focus your awareness in your belly, and eventually your body will catch up. Your thoughts are very important. You correct your mind, the body will follow. That's in the Tao. It's very, very important. So if you just keep telling yourself, I'm breathing into my belly, eventually sooner or later you'll, and oh, it's popping out now when I'm breathing in. And it's really great. So diaphragmic breathing is extremely important to calming. It triggers your vagus nerve, it triggers your parasympathetic nervous system. All these things that you're doing are telling your body it's time to be calm. Now, who thinks that the best time to do this is right when you're about to have a panic attack? You guys are like catching on to the way I'm asking questions. Of course it's a good thing to do when you're having a panic attack. But I'm not like a big football player, football guy anyway, but if we were a team and we wanted to win the Super Bowl, the best time to start practicing for the Super Bowl would not be right when the biggest game of the year is going on, right? So what I found through going to therapy and working with a lot of people is a lot of people only do this when it's stressful, when they're stressed. Okay, now I'm gonna breathe. Well, you suck at breathing. You don't even know how to diaphragmic breathe, and now you're going to try to breathe while somebody who's been triggering you for 20 years is right in your ear, or you're in traffic and you're feeling claustrophobic. How in the world do you expect to do well if you're doing it when it's difficult? I mean, it's hard to even think straight when things are difficult. I just barked at my dog the other day for biting my father-in-law's dog, and I'm so peaceful. Nothing ever bothers me. But when I got into that situation, my body's tense and I just spoke. My mind went from that emotional state and I was not in control of myself. And I could lie to myself and be like, well, no, I needed to yell at her, and it was time, I had to break them up. And yeah, sure enough. But I was not in control in that moment because I was in that emotion. So the only way to be in control over your stress is to practice being in control when it's easy, when it's really easy, and to practice and get so good at breathing into your belly that it becomes a reflex to yawn every time you breathe into your belly. You can develop this reflex in a day if you practice this enough. So, all of my clients and all of the group coaching that I've done, and even in my book that I encourage you to buy, just kidding, but not really. It's called The Foundation. This is part of the basics, the very first things that I teach. You set an alarm on your phone. Use that junk for something useful. Set an alarm for every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, every hour. Get serious about your well-being. Be a warrior for your happiness. Take it. And every half hour, stop what you're doing and do this breathing exercise. And do at least 6. That's what the literature says. If you do 6 of them, you can change your state. Do 10 of them. People go, Khail, how many should I do? Well, do they feel good? Yeah. How often do you get to feel good? Do as many as you can. Now, I know that the sitting, your arms open, all, zenned out like a monk, might not be, you might not be able to do it. And not all of you have the desk job, or not all of you have, I have 2 toddlers, so I can't always do this. So instead of sitting and closing your eyes and opening your palms and putting your shoulders back, you can just do it while someone's talking to you. Just let them talk at you, and they'll go, "Are you okay?" And you go, "Oh my gosh, yes." So good. Well, just because you're breathing. Yeah, it feels good to breathe. Go ahead, keep talking. And don't give a crap about what they're thinking, just do it for you. Be a warrior for your happiness. There's one other important part that I shouldn't forget here. When you're done with this breathing, when you've done it enough that you actually start to feel something, you're letting go of your grip on stress. You're letting go of your grip on anxiety, because truthfully, that's what it is. It's your grip. You have the power. You're hanging on to this stuff. And it's liberating when you realize you can just, boom, drop it. It's amazing. And it doesn't matter what it is, but it's you. You have that power. It's in every bit of your being, all of your cells, all of your awareness. When you feel the loosening, when I say you, it's a lowercase y. You have a grip on this. It's your program. It's your ego. It's who thinks it's in charge up there. When you start to feel that loosening as you're breathing, you want to focus on a very positive thought. Very specific, one very specific thing that's very positive in your life. Sounds easy. Does that sound easy, to focus on one positive thing? Guys, this guy's a trickster. It's not that easy. So I'll tell people, okay, give me your positive thought, and I feel like I have a kindergarten class, but it's a kindergarten of consciousness. I'm waking people up when I help them. And I say, give me your positive thought. And they'll go, "Well, Khail, my wedding day was the most positive day of my life." And I'll go, "Okay, here we go." I'll say, "It was supposed to rain, but it didn't. And my mother-in-law showed up, and she wasn't as bad as she usually is. And my hair was a mess, but it was just such a good day." And I'm like, that story sucks. I mean, that's terrible. What's positive about that? I'm like, well, it was positive. It sounds good, right? Doesn't it? What are we calling this? Free at last, right? Free. Freedom is a really, really powerful word. But the word that comes after that is really important too. Do we want freedom from anxiety? Or do we want freedom to express ourselves authentically? Do we want freedom to be happy, freedom to do whatever we want to do in our lives? Or do we want freedom from our problems? You have to transition into freedom too if you want to take the fast track to your healing. And it's a very, very subtle, important difference to go to freedom too. So if I say, give me a positive thought, and it's riddled with all the reasons why it was not negative, your subconscious mind is still feeling all that negativity. If I imagine my dog dying, getting hit by a car, God forbid, but she didn't, I still feel bad because I imagined it. And then talking about how it didn't happen, your brains are very smart. Even if you're not aware that you're thinking it, your subconscious is going through these thoughts, going through how the dog got hit by the car or something terrible. I'll try not to say such awful things. But you pick something positive. And when I came up with this idea, I couldn't think of anything positive. And I was making 6 figures. And still have a beautiful wife, and I still have a beautiful son, great health. And I could not think of a positive thing, because I was really, really honest. I mean, I could name 100 things, but this is just for us here. You're not a bad person if you have a great life on the outside, but on the inside you feel like crap. Be real with yourself. It's okay. So what do you do if you can't think of something positive? Think of a box of kittens, like way too many kittens in a box, and somebody comes over and they dump the kittens on you. And when I say one positive thing, very specific, I mean you think of those kittens bouncing all over you, and they're meowing, and their big bright eyes, and their fur, and they're purring, and you just keep thinking and telling yourself all the details about this. And what your mind is going to want to do is go, a box of kittens, and also I like puppies, and did I put the stove, did I turn the stove off, and what should I make for dinner later? And you don't need 40 things. Just need one really positive, because what you want to do is elicit an emotion. Because if you elicit an emotion, a positive emotion, you're changing your chemistry. When you change your chemistry, you're changing everything. You're changing your physiology eventually when you do it enough, because those receptors are going to be keep looking for serotonin or dopamine or whatever it is. So can everybody think of something positive? At least think of the box of kittens. I mean, I'm allergic to kittens and it's still cute, so I'm like, oh, this is cute. You know? Think of something positive. This stuff works, but you have to work with it. You have to do it multiple times a day. You have to set an alarm, because you'll forget. And make up for it later at night. Do it for 2 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes at night. Do it for 5. If you do this for 2 weeks, I promise you, you'll be a different person. You'll be different. You'll be stronger. You'll be more awake, more alert, more alive. That's the first part. Next part is water. Who likes drinking water? Yay, good. 100 ounces a day, minimum. 100. We were raised wrong. They told us, like, I don't know, 6 cups or something like that. I don't think that's... No. So one of my clients, she, actually some of the stories that I'm going to tell you might trigger you a little bit. If you're triggerable, then you're untriggerable too. And only people that have gone through trauma and tough times are the types of people that really want real out of life. They really want to live. They're strong people. They're powerful people. They have powerful stories that impact more powerful people. If it wasn't for these things, you'd be going through the motions, you'd be stuck in some mundane life, and then on your deathbed, you'd be like, I never even lived. But these traumas and these hardships, they've forced you into a place that is going to be beautiful, or already is beautiful, or is getting beautiful wherever you're at, but it will change, it will grow. So one of my clients, she was, sorry there are kids in here. I don't know, can I tell stories with kids in here? Okay. One of my clients, she was molested by her older brother while she was growing up. And her mom used to turn the music up so she didn't have to hear what was going on in the other room. And this went on until she was 15. She moved out of her house at 15. And then she got into a motorcycle accident when she was 18. And her brother came to visit her in the hospital. And while she was half under, she saw him doing the exact same thing to her again. This woman, when she'd wake up, she'd be in a panic attack, and she'd stay in a panic attack until her boyfriend got home from work at noon. And then when he left at 1, because he came home for lunch, she'd go back into the panic attack, and it wouldn't stop until she went to sleep, or sometimes when he came home. And even then, she'd wake up and she'd throw up in the middle of the night because she'd be writhing in, tension and pain and fear. And I asked her, how much water do you drink a day? And she goes, sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm really thirsty and I drink water. And I go, okay. And that was it. And I was like, okay. What do you drink? And she's like, usually 2 20-ounce bottles of soda. Just with the water, she made significant difference. The next phone call that I had with her 2 days later, she had color in her skin. She looked beautiful. Started doing the breathing exercise, and she cured her panic attacks in a week and a half from doing this breathing exercise. She had a lot of time in her hands. She did it every 15 minutes. She stopped what she was doing and sat there and breathed. But that's how fast we can rewire. Studies say that it takes 6 weeks to rewire your mind. But that's a study, and that's using, certain parameters. You guys, you can be creative. You can figure this out. So water, breath work, and whatever you're doing in the morning, do something different. Change it. Say, this is the new me. Starting tomorrow, do something different. Go for a walk. Do this breathing exercise. Drink water first thing in the morning. If it's hard for you to drink that much water, pound it first thing in the morning, and the rest of the day your body will go, oh my gosh, this hydration thing feels really good. And it'll start thirst. I'm thirsty right now, and I've probably drank 3 of those 26-ounce bottles already. But I knew that if I drank any more, I'd have to take a break in the middle of this. So, all right. So that's the basics. That's the foundation. When you start with that stuff, and having a good nighttime routine. Turn the electronics off 20 minutes before you go to bed. Don't sleep with the TV on. The more you stimulate yourself. When I was trying to heal, I was listening to Alan Watts. Anybody familiar with Alan Watts? He's a famous philosopher. I was listening to him at 2x on YouTube, and then I would get an audiobook, and I'd do dishes, and I'd listen to the audiobook and YouTube at the same time while doing dishes. And I'm like, oh, I'm getting rid of this anxiety, baby. I got all this knowledge pouring into my system. And then I realized how anxious I was being. I was creating so much anxiety, so much stimulation, so much doing in anxiety. So about feeling better, you have to embody a calm person. You know, anybody ever ask or tell you to just relax? Okay, just relax. You're like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. Relax. If I knew how to, I would. But that's what you have to do. You have to practice relaxing. You have to practice walking when you feel like running. You have to practice sitting when you feel angry. You have to practice being softer and calmer and gentler. But it has to start from the way that you're talking to yourself. So, let's do the breathing exercise together. Let's do 7 of these things. And maybe I can get a time check, and if I have time, I'll tell a story, and okay. I'll give some wisdom, or maybe we can ask questions if anybody wants to ask questions. But remember, posture, shoulders back, right? Chin up. Palms open. You're receiving. You're receiving your own awesomeness. You're amazing. All right, now start slowly breathing in. Now the goal for this, it's kind of like 4 seconds in, pause for a second, and then 4 seconds out. If you can't do that, do 3 or 2. But what you want to do is really pull that air in, get more oxygen into your cells, and by the last breath, you want to slow down. So go ahead and get started if you haven't already. Just take a moment to love your awesome, powerful self who came out here today to feel better, to grow, to help other people. And focus on something positive just for a moment. Don't worry, I'm the only one looking at you guys. It's only awkward for me. If you believe in God, God wants you to be happy, but He wants you to create it for yourself. Teaching yourself to fish, you know? He wants you to earn it for yourself. If you believe in the universe, it's the same thing. And if you believe in you, you know deep down that's what you want for yourself too. You guys are amazing. I see some yawning. Oh yeah, yawning is a good thing. Now, as you practice this, it'll be like a Pavlov's dog experiment. That was where Pavlov would chime the bell and the dogs would salivate because he would chime it every time he would feed the dogs. He would chime a bell. Feed the dogs, chime the bell. Feed the dogs, chime the bell. Chime the bell. Saliva. Because the dogs felt, oh, there must be food. And they might not even be consciously aware that there might be food, but they start drooling. So you create this trigger in yourself to, okay, I'm going to calm down now. And then you can just yawn and it comes out of nowhere. And if you could do that in your craziest experiences, in your most trying times, and wherever you're most stressed, wouldn't that be beautiful? To yawn or smile or laugh at anxiety? As Alan Watts said, true religion is laughing at anxiety. Wouldn't that be beautiful? All right. If anybody has any questions, I'll answer questions. I would love to. Yes?
Do you have, or do you know of any apps that will remind you?
There's, so everybody has, like everybody who has a smartphone, you can set alerts on your phone and set them for different times of the day. You can also set a timer for a half hour, an hour, and then just hit restart every time. There's also an app called Chime that I think does that, which is really nice. So, great question. Yes. Yes. $20. It's a workbook too, so you fill it out as you go. And it's got a ton of spiritual wisdom in it as well. Any other questions? I've got plenty to say, yes.
So when you're thinking of happy, do you usually kind of focus on the same thing like kittens? Or do you kind of mix it up?
It's a really good question. So, what you want to do is feel happy. If you can think about kittens for the next 2 years and be happy 10 times a day thinking about kittens, perfect. But if you're like me and things kind of get stale and you have to change things up, then just keep your fingers on the pulse, right? It's not about, see, the problem with so many practices and schooling and jobs and things like we put our responsibility into the system rather than us, and it's made it really difficult for us to pick a mirror up and get really real with ourselves. So it's such a good question because, you know, after a couple of days, you might not be happy every time you think about kittens. So you really have to check, is this still, am I smiling, am I laughing when I'm thinking about this? Am I feeling at ease, or am I just going through the motions? Because you can't fool your subconscious. It's in it for you, it really is. It's on your side. It's just aiming you in the wrong direction because it's giving you what you've been asking for. And if you've been asking to get away from anxiety, you feel anxiety. When you say get away from anxiety, what you feel is what your subconscious delivers. It speaks feelings, not words or thoughts. Any other questions? Yes? Where are you from? Whew, Earth. Originally from Long Beach, California, and my parents divorced when I was 6, and my mother got away from my abusive father, and she took her abuse with her to Pennsylvania with me and my 2 siblings, and we've moved around Pennsylvania for most of my life. And we actually, my family, my wife and 2 children just moved back from Los Angeles, and now we're in northeastern Pennsylvania. But I do everything online. I do a lot of traveling, but I coach people online. I'm on Facebook, and I have a ton of videos on YouTube and Facebook as well. The virtual age, a lot easier to connect with people online than going door to door. Hey, do you have anxiety? Any other questions? Yes, please. So I have a minor in psychology. I have a major in pre-medicine and biology. And for 7 years after school, 2 years I worked as a microbiologist. So there are drugs that are out there that I was responsible for making sure they were clean when they went across the chain. And it was a job that a monkey could have done, or a robot would have probably been a lot better, but they pay nothing for people to make sure that the sterility of the drugs that you're injecting yourself with are pure. And then after that, I was a consultant for a medical device company, well, a few medical device companies. So in surgery, orthopedic surgery, any kind of surgery really, there's a guy standing behind the doctor that's telling him how to use the equipment, how to use the different surgical equipment, how to put the implant in, which screws he should use, and things like that. Very often, the doctor does not know how to use the equipment as well as the consultant does. So I would walk surgeons. Some of them they knew what they were doing. I'm not trying to take away from that. But some surgeons are C students, and they have terrible hands. And some are A students with fantastic hands, and some are C students with great hands. And that's really the best doctor. If you go to a doctor and they just seem really personable, but they have fantastic hands, that's the one that you want putting their hands inside you. Just some side advice. But I have always had PTSD, insomnia, depression, and I'll tell you like a brief, just a real nutshell, if that's okay. My first memories were of abuse. My mother used to hit me with a wooden paddle that she labeled Kale's Cure. And synchronistically, cosmically, significantly, she was right. It really was what I needed, but not growing up. It was very, very challenging. And she used that until that broke. And then she went back with her hands and another paddle. She pulled my hair. She knocked my front teeth out when I was 6. She abandoned me on the highway when I was 16, and I hitchhiked home. And guess who picked me up? Child services, of all people to see a 16-year-old hitchhiking on the side of the road in the rain. And I didn't put her in jail because I was terrified of what she might do when she came back. And I buried it all, and I wore it on my sleeve. I used to tell this story like to my friends, like, oh, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, my mom used to abuse me, and I thought that it was me healing, but it was really just me not processing it the right way. I went to college, and I was going to be an acting major. I thought that I was going to get into law, and then I'm going to be a doctor because I was just so focused on that American dream and success. And I was miserable in school. I accrued a ton of debt trying to find myself, and then I thought I did. And then when I worked at these jobs, I started getting a lot of anxiety. And then in an accident where I was trying to make more money through a fitness program with a buddy of mine, I was bench pressing weight that was way too much, and I tore my pec muscle at the musculotendinous junction. It's a really bad place to tear it. If you rip the tendon off, they can fix that pretty easily, but you can't put stitching through a muscle because it'll just tear. So I go into one of my doctors, who's a friend of mine. I go into his office, and he's like, oh, you're going to have a girl's boob for the rest of your life, haha. And I was like, okay, like you're making fun of me, but that's fine. I don't care about that. He goes, but you'll never do a push-up again. I was like, I don't need to be a bodybuilder, but if I can't do a push-up, what happens if I fall? He's like, you might not be able to use your right arm very well. If you fall, you'll tear it and you'll be done. It's like, you're hanging on by a thread, Khail. I was like, but I'm very physical. Like, how will I throw my son around? How will I play with him? You know? And he's like, you just got to be really careful for the rest of your life, Khail. And that's when the panic started getting really bad, because every time I would look at him, man, I can still feel it. It was so powerful. I couldn't even look my son in the eyes, you know? It was the only thing I wanted to do with my life. At the same time, I went into a sleep study, and they proved that I had moderately severe sleep apnea, so I was wearing the Darth Vader mask at night. But what I was realizing is I was getting out of breath constantly. I'm like, this sleep mask is making my diaphragm weak, or my lungs weak, or something it's working against me somehow. And my sleep started failing me. It wasn't even that good. So everything piled up, and finally, stubborn Khail had to make a shift. So I do not have a degree in psychology, and I'm not a licensed practitioner, but I do know what I'm doing, helping people. Yeah, a lot of experience, hundreds of people that I've helped. And I'm very, very blessed. So about the kind of twisted fate with Khail's Cure written on there, I wouldn't be up here today if my mom didn't do that. And truth be told, everybody is working with the best tools they have in that moment. Maybe not the best tools they had walking into that experience, but in that emotional moment, that's all she knew how to do, was to try to control me. That was the only thing that was coming out of her. And not for nothing, she wasn't waking up every morning listening to Tony Robbins and going, oh, it's going to be the best day ever. She was young, and she had 3 children, and we were living in poverty, and she was beautiful, and she had a master's in teaching, and she couldn't get a job. So it was very difficult for her at that time. I'm not excusing or condoning the behavior in any way at all, but Tony Robbins also went through very similar experiences where his mom was pouring soap down his throat. And Jesus, that guy feeds 1 million people a year, and he's helped hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people at this point. It's all, our stories are how we tell it to ourselves, what they actually mean. You know, what does your trauma do for you? What has it done for you? It's not just about, oh, I have to protect myself, I have to curl up and get away. If you need to for a while, that's okay. But it's also a catalyst for wanting more. I mean, I always thought I was a happy guy, but I was neurotic, I was miserable, I could complain about anything, and I'm very sarcastic, so from the time waking up to getting to work, I had 1 million complaints. That's no way to live. But because of all this, I've fought for my happiness. I want to be happy, and I want to be as happy as I possibly can be, because the happier I am, the happier other people are around me too, and the more I can help other people. And that's all I really want to do with my life. But I think I've probably taken up enough of everybody else's time. Are there any other questions? It's okay if you have a question. I'll answer them quick, but if not, yes.
How's your shoulder now?
Oh, good question. So what I did was I ignored the doctor, like I don't advise you guys to do. And once I was able to lift my arm up, which was physically impossible, if a blanket was on my arm and I pulled, oh my God, I was writhing in pain. I started doing push-ups on the wall. And then I'd work my way down, and I can bench like 225. I don't really do it much anymore, but I'm strong now. you could actually see a little dent in there. It's not perfect, but it works. And I can throw my son very high and make lots of people uncomfortable at public events. Thank you so much for having me. Bless you. I love you. Love yourselves.